Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. This is the January 2022 meeting of the Robert Lunz Group Sierra Club. We have over 1,300 members in the local community, including Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester, and Colleton counties. And our mission is to explore and enjoy and protect the planet. Let me get this to work. There we go. All right, our leadership. I am Christine von Kalnitz. I am the chair of the local group. You were just listening to Laura Moses. She handles all of our publicity very well. Star is handling the behind the scenes on the controls tonight. He is our outings chair and webmaster, and Pat Luck's on the scene. Nina Fair's in the house. We have positions open. We have a treasurer position that's open, and we have a conservation chair, Ben Mack. I think he's going to be doing something else soon, so that position might be coming open, and political chair. All right, volunteers needed. We are working on something called Charleston Ready for 100. What that is a group of people that we're all ready for 100% clean energy. So we want to push our local governments to do just that. And there's a nationwide push for this through the Sierra Club. We have an employee out of Columbia, South Carolina, whose job it is to work for 100% clean energy in all of South Carolina. And she is working with us. We are going through this campaign, and we would love to have your help on this campaign. So if you're interested in that, give me a call or send me an email. All right, outings. Star, would you like to talk about our outings?
So the Sierra Club was founded in the 1890s by John Muir. And one of the things John did over the years was to take people out into the woods to expose them to the outdoors. In particular, he wanted to show them the Sierra, or the range of the Sierras, the range of light, as they say. And so that began a tradition that's continues to this day. And so the local group, Robert Lunz Group, has a series of outings that you see listed there, several in January, February, and March. So wintertime is when we get out and walk around and look at things. This Saturday, we're going to hike a section of the Swamp Fox Passage of the Meadow Trail. The current outing is actually sort of full, but if you want to go, send me an email directly and I'll tell you the particulars and you can join us. On the 16th, Bill Turner is going to take a group hiking in the Francis Marion National Forest somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to go. Maybe he doesn't know either. It'll be fun. On the 22nd of January, we'll be going up to Huntington Beach State Park to walk the beach and walk the jetties and look at that absolutely beautiful spot. On the 12th and 13th, I have a 2-day trip to the Santee Coastal Reserve. On the Saturday, rather, I think it's the 12th, we'll go biking around some of the trails. And then on the next day, the 13th, we'll walk around the Cape Trail and walk out in one of the most remarkable landscapes here in the Low Country that you've ever seen. On the 19th of February, Bill Turner, will lead a hike at the Cumbie unit of the Ace Basin National Wildlife Refuge. Should be a whole lot of fun. On the 13th, Bill Turner will lead an off-road cycling adventure at the Bear Island Wildlife Management Area. Also going to be a whole lot of fun. And on the 19th, we'll lead an off-road cycling on the Lake Moultrie Passage of the Palmetto Trail. That's about 30 miles, so your butt needs to be in shape for that one. And I want to add that if you're interested in taking a wilderness first aid class, we are co-sponsoring with the Charleston Suitability Institute a wilderness first aid class. That's July 29th and 30th, and that's listed in our outings listing. It does cost money, and it is a 20-hour commitment. So we think that you ought to want to do that. So sign up if you can, and we'll be in touch. See you outside soon.
Good job. Our outings, I just can't even say enough about these outings. It's a day full of sun, wildlife, incredible Charleston scenery, low country scenery, and you don't even know you're exercising. So coming out and join us. All right, another place to come out and join us, Bowen's Island in February on the 27th, when COVID is far, far behind us. We will be having our Sierra Club Oyster Roast and Auction at Bowen's Island. Tickets are online for sale now at Eventbrite. $40 in advance, $45 at the gate. Students are 25, children are 5, and under 6 are free. We will have oysters, chili, veggie and meat chili, veggie dogs, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, live music by Lime and the Coconuts, which if you've never heard Lime and the Coconuts, they are one of the most fun bands ever. And we will have beer and wine available with a donation. So if you would like to volunteer, please reach out to Ben Mack and let him know if you can serve hot dogs or ice cream or beer or setup or cleanup or bring chili. And you can donate items to the silent auction. Please contact Laura Moses or Nina Fair at their emails on this, their emails are right here. And come on out and just enjoy the oysters. All right, before tonight's meeting, we are going to tell you about our meeting next month. We have a member slideshow. So that is Thursday, February 3rd at 7 p.m. We really, this is one of our best meetings of the year. All of our members are used to traveling and have gotten out all over the world, and they will be showing their slides. So, and if you have slides, please email me and let me know if you would like to present. All right, tonight's program, we have Laura Rogers and Kevin Limehouse. They are here to tell us about the smart infrastructure for transport, safety, resilience, and electrification in South Carolina. And the little tiny bit that we've seen, we are so excited. Laura Rogers is the Deputy Director of the RAY, and Kevin Limehouse is an Innovation Officer for Charleston County. They are working on something called Core SC, and it's a collaboration to develop resiliency solutions for water, connectivity, agriculture, natural hazards, and energy. So welcome to Kevin and Laura, and I'll let you take it over. And oh, while you're getting your screens ready, want to let everyone know that if you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. And at the end of the presentations, I'll do a sort of a going back and forth. I'll read the question and let either Laura or Kevin answer. Trying to figure out how to stop share. There we go.
Thank you so much, Christine. And thank you, Christine, Laura, Starr, for inviting us to present today. Kevin and I are both really excited to share what we're doing. So let me get my slides shared. And we will jump right in because we have a lot to say. So what I'd like to do is we'll start with my organization, the RAY, and then we will move into our work with Core SC and the projects that we are working on that we're hoping to propel forward in 2022 in Charleston area. So again, I'm Laura Rogers. I am the Deputy Director of the RAY. And just to give a little bit of background of who we are, it's really important to understand that background so you can understand our DNA and why we do what we do. So the RAY is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We are based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we also work on an 18-mile stretch of highway in West Georgia along I-85. So this is rural Georgia. And what's special about this 18-mile stretch is that it is dedicated to Ray C. Anderson. And for those of you who are not familiar with Ray C. Anderson, he was really the global leader in sustainability for the corporate world. So he founded in 1970, in the 1970s, a carpet tile company named Interface. And through the 1970s and the 1980s, he grew that small company into a $1 billion global organization. And in the 1990s, he has what he calls his spear in the chest moment, where he realized that his model of take, make, waste was unsustainable, and that he was stealing from tomorrow's generation, from tomorrow's child. And so in 1994, he challenged his company to go zero. So zero carbon and zero waste, which included wastewater. And it also included, using renewable energy. So just remember, 1994, nobody was talking about carbon. We were all talking about, holes in the ozone, and not using Aquanet. And, renewable energy was very, very expensive. So, it's not like people voluntarily installed solar on their properties. But Ray did it. And he really was the catalyst moving corporate sustainability forward. So now it's very common, right? Walmart, Unilever, everybody has a corporate sustainability goal. And Ray was the first. He was the one that set that off. And so not only did he do this for his company, but he went on the speaking tour. He was out, preaching this and really convincing, the corporate world that you can do well by doing good. And how did he convince them? He documented all of the savings that his company was able to make by moving toward the sustainability model. And so he was able to document over $400 million worth of savings for $1 billion company by moving towards sustainability. So that is where we get our name, and that is where we get our inspiration. And so along this 18-mile stretch, we have a formal partnership with the Georgia Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration. And we are building out the transportation future of sustainability. So we use this 18-mile stretch to test innovative technologies in the real world on a public working highway. So not just behind a test track, but what can really, be installed and perform and succeed in the real world. And we have been able to build over a dozen physical infrastructure projects in the past 6 years. And I'll go through some of those projects tonight. The last couple of years, we've been really pushing to take what we have learned from the Ray Highway and spread it to the rest of the country to help other transportation agencies get into their own sustainability projects, to do these own good works. So I'll start with renewable energy. One of our primary programs at the Ray centers around the transportation and energy nexus. So many DOTs currently spend millions of dollars annually to mow and to maintain their roadsides, the right-of-way. And they do this, by applying herbicides, pesticides, all of that, all of the nasty chemicals. But we think that there's a better way to utilize these roadsides. And so what you're seeing here is a picture of the right-of-way solar that we have on the Ray Highway. This is located at exit 14 in LaGrange, Georgia. And it is the first ever pollinator-friendly right-of-way solar. So we have local native pollinator habitat underneath those solar panels. It is a Georgia powered grid connected project, and it's a megawatt in size. And you can see that it's safely set back from our travel lanes. We have a nice buffer there, and it's behind a crash barrier and safety fencing. And here's a look at what the pollinator habitat looks like. And by only mowing this pollinator habitat, maybe once, twice a year, it provides so many benefits, right? So we can get stormwater management credits for this pollinator habitat, we also are located in a rural area. So we have, lots of blueberry farms around us, and we're providing, habitat for the pollinators for those farms. So, we are very passionate about solar and putting it in the right of way. And so, of course, we questioned, how much more renewable energy can we actually build along our roadsides? So we recently partnered with Esri to help us find out. Esri gifted us a configured right-of-way solar mapping tool to help us quickly analyze DOT GIS data sets for the best locations that could support solar. So what you're seeing here is a map of Iowa, and the blue is all of that land in the state that can potentially be evaluated for right-of-way solar development. So we apply inclusion and exclusion criteria, and then we identify the areas that warrant further evaluation. So then we dive in deeper, and we can apply a 3D modeling to include digital elevation and digital surface models, and we can combine the two to get a realistic view of the land. And then we overlay a solar radiation tool on top of that, and that's what you're seeing with the red and the yellow. And then from there, we can take an even closer look at the right-of-way. So this shows the solar suitability model that was developed by Esri that favors high solar radiation value, which is based on the south-facing slope, followed by eastern and western aspect, and then low to moderate slopes so that we can have ease of installation and maintenance. And you can see that the green is the most suitable. And then we can actually create a digital twin, right? So when we are dealing with, transportation agencies, especially, their number one priority is safety. And, if we're not talking about a strict transportation purpose, if this is an alternative use of the right-of-way, there's a lot of convincing that we have to do that the project will be safe and really worth their while. So by creating a digital twin, we can actually bring the DOT into the world, right? So that they can see it. They don't just have to imagine it. They can see what kind of impacts the solar array would have on their property. And then from there, we can use that digital twin and go even further in the desktop analysis to include a viewshed analysis. So we chose a site, and at the top of that hill is a scenic overlook. And the solar panels that we have located in the transportation right-of-way block that viewshed. You can see the pink, all of the areas in pink is blocked by the solar panels. And so what we can do is we can then take off layers of solar panels and see through this evaluation how that impacts our viewshed. And when we take away some solar panels, we clear the viewshed, and we still have quite a bit of solar left along the roadsides. Okay, so let's move on to EV charging. What can we do with all of this renewable energy once we build it along our roadsides? So we can use it directly. We can pipe it directly into EV charging. So this is a picture of the EV charging station that we have on the Ray Highway at the Visitor Center. And this is right on the border of the Georgia-Alabama line on I-85. It is 175 kW EV charging station. And by adding one more power module to this, we can upgrade it very quickly to 350 kW, which is very, very fast charging. So 175 kW, will take maybe 20 to 40 minutes to charge a vehicle. And 350 will take anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes to charge the vehicle. And it is supported by that solar tree in the back. And then what else can we do with that energy? We are actually working with the Aspire Center, and hopefully this video is coming through, on dynamic wireless in-lane charging. So this is not science fiction. This is real. This is a test bed in Utah at the Utah State University through the Aspire Center, which is a National Science Foundation funded engineering center. And this is, we basically install electric coils underneath the pavement. And those coils transmit to a receiver on the vehicle, on the electric vehicle, and you can charge while you drive. And what's great about this technology is, unlike plug-in, unlike plug-in electric vehicles, this can be used across all vehicle types. So passenger vehicles, medium, heavy duty freight vehicles, all of the above. And, for example, if you have a passenger vehicle, you may only want to accept a small amount of power into your vehicle. But if you have a large tractor trailer, you may want to put multiple receivers on that tractor trailer so that you can get more power to run. And what this does, it does a lot of great things. So one, it means that we can reduce the size of our batteries on our vehicles. And this is important for a lot of reasons, but especially because in medium and heavy duty freight, because that vehicle, that battery weight actually eats into the payload, right? So if we want medium and heavy duty freight to adopt electric vehicles, we have got to figure out some of these weight issues. And, talking about, when we talk about range anxiety for passenger vehicles, imagine what it is for medium and heavy duty freight vehicles. If they break down, there's really not a lot of options out there. All right, and then let's dive into tires for a little bit. So this is one technology that delivers the triple bottom line. So, we have what's called the Wheelwright Tire Safety Station at the Visitor Center on the Ray. And it's a drive-through system that analyzes tread depth, tire pressure, sidewall damage. It has weigh in motion, and it does all of that without you ever leaving your vehicle. And at the end, there's a kiosk that prints out your results, and it will tell you if your tires are underinflated or if there is any damage to your tires. So with this technology, we can save lives, we can save wasted fuel, and we can reduce carbon and other pollution simply by driving through. And then what happens when we're done with all those tires? So tires is kind of the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room, right? Nobody wants to talk about tires, but we in America throw out 260 million tires every year total. And as we move to electric vehicles, the estimate is that number will up to double. So up to 400 to 500 million tires per year, because electric vehicles are much, much harder on tires. And so they have about half or 2/3 of the life than they currently do. So what do we do with all those tires? A lot of times they can end up in the illegal dumps and, cause fires or, harbor rodents or, insects. And they persist in the landfill for at least 80 to 100 years. So instead, what we can do with those tires is we can actually put it into our asphalt. So the Ray has done a couple of projects. We do have rubber modified asphalt on the Ray Highway and at our visitor center. And we also did a project with Troup County in Georgia. And so how do we know that adding tire rubber to asphalt is beneficial? So the Ray teamed up with the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association and the University of Missouri. We teamed up to find out, and we did a best-in-class state of knowledge report looking at all of the studies that are available up to date to really figure out what those benefits were. And so the resultant state of knowledge report is a single inventory of best-in-class safety, performance, environmental, and economic research. We also identified existing data gaps. And so you can see from this slide that there are just a ton of benefits from mixing rubber into our asphalt, including environment sustainability, reduced CO2 emissions, ozone depletion, water depletion. It reduces leaching potential. We have improved safety, improved performance. It reduces the cracking and the rutting. And so when you can reduce the cracking and the rutting of your pavement, that means your pavement will last longer. it increases the smoothness of the pavement, which means you have less rolling resistance. It reduces hydroplaning. So when you use rubber in your asphalt, you can actually use a looser grade, a looser rock mix, which means that you can pull that water away from the road faster than traditional mixes. And then the economics, it is less expensive over the life cycle of the pavement. And you can also use thinner designs. We also are doing a lot of work in connected freight. So we are building out the smart highway, both the physical infrastructure in the road and the digital infrastructure in the cloud. So we worked with 3M to stripe the Ray with their connected road striping. It's all weather, wet dry, retro-reflective, and it's made from materials that are specifically designed for visibility by autonomous vehicles and their machine vision learning systems. Road striping is essential for the safe operation of autonomous vehicles, and that's the hardware. It's also highly visible to the human eye. And then we worked with the Georgia Department of Transportation and with Panasonic to build the software system, or the brain, that is optimized for connected vehicle data streams. And the last thing I'm going to touch upon is our landscape laboratory work. So located at exit 6 is our landscape lab. We do quite a bit of research here. The Georgia Department of Transportation spends about $44 million per year on mowing and roadside maintenance. So what we would like to do through this lab is looking for ways to reduce costs, to decrease emissions and improve safety by decreasing the time personnel spend working next to high-speed traffic. And then we're also exploring ecosystem services. So we are looking at plants that have deeper root systems to help restore the soil, to draw down more carbon, to reduce erosion, and to allow for better infiltration, reducing point source stormwater discharge, while also creating additional pollinator habitat. So the one I want to highlight is our Meadow research. The goal of the Meadow research program is to develop successful and scalable perennial seed mixes and installation methods. So many state wildflower programs feature annuals, and they must be replanted every year. So this work that we're doing is using perennial mixes, which provides similar beauty with long-term stability, carbon sequestration, and ecosystem support. We are using the James Hitchmo approach, which is not a natives only approach, but rather it focuses on natives that looks towards climate suitability. So as we have changing climate, the ecosystem is changing with it, right? So especially in the urban and human dominated context, where the most suitable plants may be from other regions, or especially warmer ones as climate change occurs. So the typical seed mix found in North American seed suppliers is usually 80-20 grasses to forbs. And what we do with the Hitchmo method is we flip that. So it's 80-20 forbs to grasses. And so this is done to meet human aesthetic needs and provide diversity for pollinators. Because what we have found is if the roadsides, when they are blooming and they're pretty, everybody loves them. When they are not blooming, everybody complains, and they call the DOT to ask them to mow the roadsides. And that is what we are trying to avoid. So we sow the seed about 2 to 3 inches under a layer of what we call a mineral blanket. And that is a very effective form of weed control. So the seed mix is sown directly into the top of the mineral blanket, and it provides time without weed pressure, which allows the species time to germinate and send roots down into the moisture retentive native soil to stabilize and mature. So we are exploring this work in the context of understanding of messy ecosystems with orderly frames. And in roadside work, this can take the form of edges, such as mowing the edges or a pavement edge. But it's also critical to think about the meadow itself and what species within the mix serve as a visual structure. And so this, you can see In our test plot, the weed pressure is visibly evident on site. So in the left-hand image, you can see a clear dividing line between the fines plot on the right and the clay pot on the left, where our flowering seed mixes are outcompeted by Bermuda grass. That's what that is. And then this division is even more evident on in the image on the right. So here again, we see a stark transition between the blanket flower blooming throughout the fines plot in the foreground and the Johnson grass dominated clay pot in the middle ground. And last year, we actually saw monarch caterpillar on the ray, which was very exciting for us. So it means that we're doing maybe something right out there. Okay, and then I would love to turn it over to Kevin to bring it all together and talk about the work we are doing with Core SC.
And so here's a tip for everyone. If you get the opportunity, never present after Laura Rogers. So I apologize, it's just going to be downhill from here, but I'll do the best that I can. So I'm wearing a few hats this evening. The first I need to tell you all about is the dad hat. So my amazing wife is kindly in the other room trying to put our two small children to bed. And so if you hear craziness in the background, please bear with bear with us. The other two hats, one is I'm the Innovation Officer for Public Services at Charleston County Government. And then I have the good pleasure to be a team member of Core SC, or the Center of Resilience Excellence, South Carolina. And there's a great long story to tell you all about this, but I'm going to give you the small to medium version and start with that. So quickly, Core SC is a consortium that started with Charleston County, the College of Charleston, and the South Carolina Aquarium. And how this came together is the county, and my job is to work on partnerships. I very much believe in partnerships. We're stronger when we work together, and that includes internally and externally. And I've had the good pleasure to work with a number of great organizations. The South Carolina Aquarium is not only an amazing attraction, but they do wonderful public outreach and public education. And working together for a number of years, we've promoted better resilience and sustainability for our region. Sidebarring from that, I had the good pleasure, being a huge NASA fan, to work with NASA a number of years ago, and we did some business expos and STEM expos and a number of other things together, and created this relationship and met Dr. Cassandra Runyon at the College of Charleston, who runs the state's South Carolina Space Grant Consortium and NASA EBSCOR programs for the state. She's the director. Both are subsets of NASA, and we worked on a number of projects together. And as all of these relationships were coming together, we had the idea that, what if we tried to create a permanent NASA facility in South Carolina? Didn't think that we could get something as big as Jet Propulsion Lab or Johnson Space Center or Kennedy, but Cass had the idea, well, NASA has these things called centers of excellence, and they usually have a particular area of focus. And we picked resilience. And so we got to work on how we thought Core SC, or what we called at the time NASA Core SC, could work. And we put together what that would be, pitched the idea to NASA. They appreciated what we were trying to do and gave us some guidance and said, hey, listen, here's your goal, is go on and get Core SC up and running on its own. Then we can begin working on projects from together, and then we can go from there. So that's what we've been doing. And as we've grown, we've added to our board Dominion Energy and the South Carolina Research Authority, and they've both been wonderful. One thing I wanted to note is that Core SC has a lot of Charleston heavy folks, but we're a state serving institution. And more than that, we work with partners all over the world and nation, including our great friends at the Ray. But we're housed at the College of Charleston, and most of our governance comes from that and our board. And so helping anyone we can. So let me tell you a little bit more about Core SC and how we decided to be a little bit different. So when we researched this and before we pitched to NASA, we looked at a lot of other organizations related to sustainability, related to resilience, and some not remotely related to that at all. And we found a lot of things that we wanted to improve on. And so a lot of us are public servants, and our idea of a good time is to help people. And so we said that the first thing that we wanted to do is make sure that anything that we did was related to creating solutions that were scalable and replicable. A lot of times we found that people suffer from something called analysis paralysis. So a lot of good ideas would get discussed, a lot of great reports would be written, and they'd sit on a shelf and go nowhere. And again, we like to have a good time by helping people, and we want to make sure that we're putting solutions in place. Secondly, we found that not necessarily by anybody's fault, sometimes you just get into the nature of your work, but there were a few silos and not everyone was talking together. And we wanted to make sure that Core SC served as a nexus between as many stakeholders as possible. And that's anywhere from state and local government, federal agencies. We work with private industry, military, nonprofits, all over the place, and making sure that we share resources, foster communication and collaboration. And then finally, we very much believe that to truly be resilient, you need to be equitable and inclusive. And so that's why we believe that all of our solutions should be scalable and replicable. So if it works for the largest organization or municipality or the industry with the most resources, we want it to be scalable and replicable to work for the smallest or the least resourced. And so far, so good. We're going to keep it up. And then next, we found that resilience was a very broad topic. And we said, well, maybe we should pare that down a little bit. And so we pared it down to 5 focus areas, which you can see here. One of our smarter members said, hey, let's make an acronym out of this because that, you all know the government always needs more acronyms, but we like this acronym. It sums up what we believe we can. And so water, energy, connectivity, agriculture, and natural hazards. We picked these 5 because not only are they incredibly relevant to Charleston, South Carolina, the nation and the world, all 5 of these are related to NASA's mission directorate. So we hope that in doing any research here that we'd also be able to provide some solutions to NASA and our friends. So I guess the next thing that we wanted to talk to you all about, and there's much more fun things to talk about, but for the sake of time, we'll get down into some of the projects. And Laura talked about so many of these, but NASA had a few requests for us and a few things to just quickly tell you about. We mentioned before that we worked with NASA on a few projects. Tech Transfer University is through the College of Charleston and Core SC, where we encourage students to take NASA technology and develop it for economic development purposes and the better of all humanity. NASA technology has always been developed for their purposes and filters out into civilian life and still has that happen. A CubeSat is a small cube-shaped satellite. Most states and a few universities have them. South Carolina's never had one before, so we're working to develop South Carolina's first CubeSat or CubeSats, try and get a few, and excited about that. And a few other things that we probably don't have time to get into, but just continuing the relationship with NASA and other federal partners, which is great. A few partnership projects locally that we wanted to talk about. Laura and Lorraine have the wonderful relationship with Esri, and using that solar analysis tool is so paramount for so much of the work that we do as public servants, and helpful to how we can plan for the future and help people get better access to renewable energy. And again, that is scalable and repeatable. So you could have 2 people in your area, you could have 200,000. Works the same way, which is great. We've been working with Joint Base Charleston on their resilience planning and tying that into some smart green infrastructure planning that we're doing at Meadow Commerce Parkway, which I won't repeat all the wonderful things that Laura just said, but all the great technology that she mentioned, we'd like to put to work for the citizens of Charleston County. Speaking of which, Charleston County Stormwater Department, we talked about all these great pieces of tech. So you can see here, this is the Rolls-Royce power plant up in Aiken, and they have these wonderful solar panels deployed and all these great pieces of technology where we're talking about battery life and EVs and electric vehicles and inductive charging. Well, sometimes doing things like pollinators or using local plants to maintain erosion control is really important, and working with the Ray and their landscape lab and Charleston County Stormwater, we're looking to deploy some of that tech. And then, of course, we're preparing infrastructure for electric vehicles and alternative fuel vehicles. We know that's coming. Industry's going that way, and our citizens will need the appropriate infrastructure. And of course, we'll update our fleet as appropriate. And working with great partners like the Ray and the State Energy Office. I think I saw Ben Kessler jump on. Appreciate him coming on here. We've got great partners, and we're trying to get this done. So I didn't want to go too far into it, but happy to answer questions if anyone has, and just appreciate everyone's involvement. We're better when we work together. We like to work together. So if we can work with you on anything, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, we're always available, even past this hour, and appreciate y'all's time and attention. Thank you so much for having us.
All right, thank you both. These are great presentations. There's a lot to think about here. We do have questions in the chat, and I will get right to it. So Laura, probably some of these are going to be for you first, since your presentation was first. Let's see. I think you kind of answered this, but what is rubberized asphalt? Was one of the questions.
Yep. So rubberized asphalt is including ground tire rubber into the mix. So when we talk about asphalt, we have a binder, and as a part of that binder, we can put some of that recycled rubber from tires into the binder. And then you mix that with aggregate, so rocks, that kind of thing. And what's great is that when you mix that binder that is supplemented by rubber, it actually holds the rocks better together, right? So normally, if you don't have the rubber in the binder, we see it everywhere, right? We see cracks, we see potholes, we see how cracks just continue to keep spreading. But when you have rubber in the mix, it still cracks, but it actually stops that crack. And so it pins it, it makes it so that it doesn't keep going. And so that prolongs the life of the pavement. But what's also great is that means you can use that looser aggregate mix. So it's not a permeable pavement. It doesn't go quite that far, but it is better than, it is better than just having a completely, kind of contained or kind of mushed together asphalt mix. It's more open graded. They call it open graded friction course is the technical term.
It's always a technical term. So you had mentioned tires and what you're doing with tire safety. And before everyone got on the call, I had mentioned that I had read an article about tires today. And I did want to let you know that I put it in the chat, and it was Goodyear. They're making a sustainable tire that they say is cutting down on petroleum use. So
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
But we also need to think about end of life too, right? And that's the thing people are not talking about. And that's something that we are very passionate about at the Ray. And it goes back to our roots. It goes back to Ray C. Anderson. Ray C. Anderson was the first to talk in the corporate world about circular, about reusing. I mean, he went in and he dumpster dived for old carpet tile. And reusing, innovating the technology so that you can reuse that carpet tile over and over and over again as if it were virgin material. And we have got to do the same thing for tires, especially since we're going to be going through more of them with electric vehicles. There is not going to be, I think it's going to shock everybody how many tires we are going to go through with electric vehicles.
Yeah, that is news to me. I had not heard that yet. And I'm a recycler at heart. And so that really strikes me as a difficult thing to hear.
Yeah.
But why? Can you answer why electric vehicles use more?
Yep. So there's a few reasons why, but primarily they are heavier in weight, and they also have a lot more torque. So of course, with any tire, a lot of it has to do with how the driver drives, even with regular ICE vehicles, right? But with the heavier weight and more torque, it means that even the best of drivers are going to go through those tires faster, just because of how the electric vehicles are built. Now, I do know OEMs are starting to think about maybe putting some controls on, on the driving part of it to reduce some of that, but it won't eliminate all of it. And I bet most consumers will not like those controls on their cars, and they will ask for them to be removed.
And it's a lot about the battery weight is what I'm understanding, right?
So the batteries make the cars very heavy, very heavy.
So the technology where you have the charging in the roads that makes you not have the need for such a heavy battery, that's one of the keys to all of this working.
So that would help, absolutely. If we can put charging in lanes through, I mean, even if we just charged a certain percentage of interstate or highway, you don't even have to charge all lanes. But even if we could just allow vehicles to what we call energy snack as they go along, so that maybe you only need a battery that can take you 50 miles or 100 miles, not 500 miles, what we're pushing for today. I mean, a lot of the vehicles coming online right now are between the 250 to 350 range. And that's for passenger vehicles. And, the demand is for even more than that, right? So who knows where we're going to be in a few years. Just, carrying all that energy that you need with you doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the long run if we can provide the energy that you need along on your trip. And especially for, the other weight classes, medium and heavy duty freight vehicles. If we want to see those vehicles move to electric vehicles, we have got to get that battery weight down.
It does beg the question, and I never thought about this until now, is, if you've got a company in, say, Charleston, South Carolina, and you buy trucks for that company and you never leave Charleston, South Carolina, are they going to sell vehicles that do have a lesser range for companies that don't intend to take their vehicle from Charleston to California?
I'm sure they will. I think that there's going to be all kinds. So, a lot of the companies that are electrifying their fleets are starting with their regional fleets first because they're easier and the technology is here. So long range, long haul trucking is not. It's probably going to be the last to electrify just because of all of those logistical concerns and the weight issue.
Okay.
And the charging network. We don't have the charging network yet in place.
So there were a couple of questions and concerns about the pollinator roadsides. One was, have you tried having beehives out there?
Yeah, so that's a really great question because we actually identified a nonprofit in Atlanta, Georgia called Bee Downtown. And so we have started conversations with that organization to help us actually bring on bees into the visitor center on the Ray Highway and potentially at Exit 6 where we have our landscape lab.
Okay. And then a concern that was raised was that, this person loves the idea of having pollinators on the roadside, but is concerned about the pollinators themselves being hit by the cars. Yeah. So what's going on there?
Yeah, so that is true. Pollinators will be hit by vehicles, but there have been studies that have been conducted by the Transportation Research Board that basically concluded that overall ecosystem health improves even when you account for the mortality of the pollinators. So then the gain is still a gain instead of a net loss, so to speak. But I think what you can do is you can be strategic in where you locate the pollinator habitat, right? So, if you locate it on the side of the roads, they don't necessarily have to cross over to different ecosystems, right? They can go out. And so some of that can be, analyzed on a case by case basis. But a lot of times we do have, plantings in the median, and yeah, it's definitely a concern, and it's definitely something that happens.
Right. All right, let's see. So there was a question about the efficiency of the method versus corded charging. How much energy is lost using this technology? So I guess that's the technology in the road.
Yep. So the efficiency is about the same. So with wireless charging, what we are seeing is between 87 and 93% efficiency. So that's about the same as we get with corded. Now, what's important, and again, I'll go back to medium and heavy duty vehicles. When we talk about charging those types of vehicles, not passengers, but if you think about the cord that you have for a passenger vehicle, and it's kind of heavy, it's kind of big, right? You plug it into your car. Now that cord, that charging cord, will be much, much bigger, much heavier for the larger class vehicles. And a lot of, fleets that are going to be using these, converting to EVs, they have unions, right, that they need to consider. And a lot of the unions are not going to allow their members to take that big, heavy cord and plug it into the vehicles. And this is where wireless charging can come into play, whether it's stationary wireless or dynamic wireless. We have other solutions as well. Overhead cantilevers, same thing. You don't have the person involved actually pulling over the charging, so it's safer.
I hadn't considered that either. There's so many considerations. One person was wondering, in South Carolina, have you seen a roadside power map for South Carolina? Do you know what that looks like?
Kevin, you want to help me out? I actually have not seen a power map for South Carolina.
Okay.
Ben might be able to help us as well. I've seen snapshots, but I don't know if I've seen a full thing. Ben, you there?
Hey, thanks, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. Are you talking about power map like utility territories?
Well, I guess they were showing or Laura showed a power map that was just along the highways. So I think the question was probably directed towards that.
Oh, okay. Charging stations then?
Well, what she showed was a map that was geared towards where the best solar could be found on the highways.
Like the Iowa example? Yeah.
Oh,
okay,
yeah,
so
go ahead, Laura.
Yeah. So the Iowa map, that is the tool that Esri gifted to the Ray to help with our solar analysis. And so our top priority is to use that along transportation assets to see where we can install solar. We have been working with Kevin and team to collect all of the appropriate GIS layers, and we are really excited to run that analysis. So we have done some preliminary analysis, but we haven't gone full depth into the digital twinning yet, but we are hoping to get that accomplished in Q1 of 22 and have some results to share. So we're really excited about that. The tool can definitely be used for other types of properties. And so we've actually had conversations with College of Charleston, their GIS division, helping them use the tool as an educational, piece for their students, and then they can run the tool on the properties outside of the transportation right of way. So we're very focused on transportation. That is our mission. That's where we're going to spend our resources. But then we're also going to be, helping College of Charleston do the analysis for other types of property.
Thank you, Laura. And just to hop in with another tool from NREL and DOE Labs is REOPT, Renewable Energy Optimization. Basically, you can plug in any type of building and set, what type of renewable energy you want to power that building and see what needs to be built out for it. So that's also a helpful tool for other types of properties.
and a continuing plug for the College of Charleston. Their GIS team there are a significant number of layers in GIS to make sure that we're getting the right data. But like Laura said, apart from transportation, they have a great program for doing things like buildings or larger pieces of property. So there's more than one way to get at it, and it's a great collaboration working on it. So if y'all ever get the chance, I encourage you to talk to the folks at the college.
There are a couple of questions about money. So how much more expensive to build a road with, how much more expensive is it to build a road that's charged this way? And then the other question was, would the cost of a charging road be absorbed as infrastructure funded by taxes, or is it possible that users would pay a toll to use it?
Yeah, good question.
That's a good question.
So it needs to be paid for. That is the short answer. It needs to be paid for by the users. And so we do face some headwinds through policy, through federal policy, federal statutory restrictions on commercialization in the interstate, on the interstate. So you actually cannot collect a fee for EV charging on the interstate highways. Now we can for other transportation roads, state highways, you definitely can. You can charge on toll roads, but there is a limitation for interstates, which is definitely an issue for deploying this technology through the U.S. This is something that we at the Ray are passionate about, removing that restriction. And, I'm sure anybody who knows me is probably sick of hearing about this US code that we want to change, but we'll plug it again because it continues to be a barrier to deployment. Free doesn't scale, right? So we can do some pilot projects. There are pilot projects out there in the US. Down in Florida, they're going to be doing a 1/4 mile of electrified roadway on their toll road. Michigan just released an RFP to do a mile of electrified roadway. But this is not going to scale across the board unless we can charge people for the use of it, for the use of the energy. So yeah, absolutely, we do need to charge for it, and there is an issue there on interstates.
So one question connected to this is, at rest stops, does this have something to do with why there's so limited EV charging at rest stops?
100%. Yep. So we can provide EV charging at rest stops on interstates for free, but that is it. And that's why we don't have a lot of EV charging at rest stops. But, there may be, it falls into the same boat. So there's a commercialization prohibition, which means that you cannot sell things. You cannot have motor vehicle services on the interstate, which is why we don't have anything at rest areas or visitor centers except for vending machines. That's really all that's allowed.
So it's hard to wrap your brain around that. So we're buying gas, we're buying diesel, we're paying taxes, we're paying for our roads through those taxes. How is this any different?
So it's a separate part of the code, and it's not connected to the funding piece. And although some of those taxes do pay for the infrastructure, they don't fully pay for the infrastructure. So, there's a lot of nuance and complication, but yeah, it's under US code that there is a prohibition of commercialization on the right of way.
Do you know why our current gas stations don't have EV charging?
So that is an interesting question as well. I do know that the gas stations and those companies are getting on board. So they are interested in becoming fuel agnostic and providing EV charging stations. And so this is something that they are working towards. However, especially in states in the Southeast, so states that have monopoly type utilities, there are some concerns from gas stations, right? So if utilities, that can install EV charging stations, right? They can recoup the costs, all of their capital costs through ratepayers. They set the fees for the energy. They basically control that. So they almost have kind of a handle on the market. Whereas if you are a third party installing EV charging station, in most states, there is a prohibition on selling energy. So if you're a gas station, you can install an EV charging station, but you cannot actually sell the kilowatts. You can sell time. But the problem is that, if you have 20 people coming in using your charging stations, you're going to see a huge increase in your energy use, right? And it's going to be kind of all over the board based on when people come in to charge. And so the utility, when they see those big spikes, they charge demand rates. They charge demand fees, which can be just very, very expensive. When the utilities own those EV charging stations, they don't charge themselves those same kind of fees. So, there's a lot of complication there, with, just competition, right? It's going to be hard for gas stations and others to compete with utilities in certain states when they have such a lock on the utility energy market.
So Ben did put in the chat that South Carolina passed legislation last year that allows for the sale of electricity at EV charger by the KW in addition to already legal time arrangement.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, so maybe
and that levels the playing field.
It does sound like maybe we'll see more at our gas stations. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
So do you think we're getting anywhere with that federal code?
We're trying. If y'all are interested, I will send you information and bug you as well to help us try and change that statute.
Absolutely.
We have a coalition. We have a coalition that we have built. We tried to get language into the IIJA. It did not make it, but we are going to continue to try. So we're looking at all types of opportunities to change that.
Well, yes, definitely send it to us and we'll get it out to everyone on this call. Plus, we'll get it out to the rest of the state. We've got Sierra Club members all over the state. And we can get it out to other groups in the state as well. We would love to help with that. Let's see. I think there are a couple more that I might have missed. So with Core SC, one question was, what's the next best evidence of Core SC getting something going?
Oh man, that's a interestingly worded question. So I guess if I take that to mean what's our next steps, maybe. So our next steps are a lot of the projects that Laura talked about and deploying those more regionally here in Charleston County with partners that we have. And sharing as much as we can with anyone else and replicating those in other places. Does that best answer that question, or is there a different way to word that maybe?
Maybe that person can give me a thumbs up. I think it's star. So well, I'll follow up on it. So the Core SC, can you give us, can you drill down on one of your projects that's in Charleston County specifically?
Sure, of course. So we didn't get to talk about it a lot. So I figured I'll use this opportunity to tell a little bit more about it. So one of the things in Laura's presentation was talking about a crop called Kernza, which is used to, what we want to use it for is erosion management. So if you think about different building project or road projects, infrastructure projects, there's different ways that you can control different stormwater management, and you'll see along the highways different types of netting, special netting that'll keep things out of waterways and different things like that. using Kernza is a great way to encourage plant life, but also to help do a little bit more natural and permanent solutions. And so that's a real quick example. And yes, sir, Kernza, I see it in chat. I believe that's how it's spelled, Lord. Is that right on the spelling? But past that, doing everything we can to get infrastructure in place for alternative fuel vehicles. So working to get EV charging at public facilities, working with our industry partners to get renewable energy and alternative vehicle charging at their facilities. And I'd say, honestly, one of the most important pieces is the education piece and getting out there and collaborating with people and making sure people are aware of the solutions that are out there and how they can get to it. Because again, when we formed Coresci and we looked at this, we found that, not necessarily everybody was working together or sharing information, and that is a full-time job. And so I'd say, apart from these immediate, low-hanging fruit, if you will, projects, that is a continual one that, we're glad to be here because we'd ask y'all's help to make sure that if anyone needs help or needs information or wants to work together, please send them our way. That's always ongoing.
Well, I want to thank you both, Laura and Kevin. I've learned so much tonight. I'm surprised by a lot of what you said. I'm heartened and disheartened equally. I think we're making a lot of progress. I think we still need to make a lot of progress, and I'm so glad that you're working on these things. And anything that we can do to help, let us know. And we will try to get the word out, like I said, across the state, across the region, about what you're doing. This meeting has been recorded, so we will pass it on to you. I noticed that you had the information on the Coresci website, so maybe we could put the recording up there for other people to see it. And it will also be on the Sierra Club Robert Lunz Group website. So let's pass this information on, and let's everybody here, let's say that we'll send it to at least one other person or one other group. We need to get this information out there. It's important. We need 100% clean energy. We need 100% clean cars and better roads for everyone. And everything you're working on is just fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who came tonight. Thank you for all your great questions. And Happy New Year to everybody. Just so glad to be back with everybody again. We're gonna have a great 2022.
Thank y'all for having us.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
all.
And thanks, Ben, for the help.
Yeah, Ben.
Yeah,
Guest
thanks,
star.
Ben.
Yeah.
Good to see y'all.